Senate Democrats, who are led by Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, are pulling out all of the stops for the 2026 Senate elections. They know, the Democrats know, they are facing a brutal map in the 2026 Senate elections, with Republicans at a clear structural advantage going into the 2026 Senate elections. What is his goal? It is to court the most high-profile candidates in each of the battleground states, like North Carolina, like Ohio, like Alaska, to flip these seats and actually give the Democrats a chance, a roll of the dice to flip the Senate in 2026. We know right now Republicans control the Senate with a 53 to 47 seat majority for the Republican Party. And with the seats that are up for grab in 2026, it is not looking very good for the Democrat Party as of right now. And the odds are pretty clear that they believe that Republicans will win the Senate in 2026. Right now, Polymarket gives the Republican Party a 71% chance of securing the Senate in 2026. Obviously, a structural disadvantage for the Democrat Party. Now, Republicans are holding firm in many of their strong Republican states, from Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Oklahoma, and a lot of the deep South right here, all the way up to West Virginia, and included with that a lot of the likely seats in Nebraska, Kansas, Texas, Alaska, Florida, South Carolina, Ohio, and the lean in Maine and Iowa. Obviously, right now, Democrats are trying to do anything they can, pull out any tactic they possibly can to win. And it's clear. It is clear that Chuck Schumer has got a couple wins under his belt at this point. Roy Cooper, the former governor of North Carolina, earlier this month announced that he would run in the 2026 Senate election in North Carolina. Remember, North Carolina is a battleground state. This is one of the only swing state that voted for President Trump in the 2020 presidential election and did not vote for Biden. They also narrowly reelected their senator at that time, Tom Tillis, in 2020 by roughly 1.5 percentage points, a little bit more than that. But still, it was a very, very close election in 2020. Fast forward now to the 2024 presidential election, and we saw President Trump sweeps all 7 of the swing states in the presidential election, including the state of North Carolina, where he almost doubled his margin of victory to 3.2 percentage points. And now Chuck Schumer is doing everything he can to target big names and make these states competitive. The Senate map, like we said, it heavily favors the Republican Party. So obviously, the big one in North Carolina. Let's take a look at this election. Obviously, right now you have Roy Cooper, who's running on the Democrat side. His only Democrat opponent, Wiley Nickel, has dropped out as of right now. On the Republican side, it appears that chair of the Republican National Committee, Michael Whately, will be the Republican nominee in 2026. There was a lot of confusion. Tom Tillis was going to run. And then after he voted against President Trump's one big, beautiful bill, he announced that he was not going to run in 2026. Then Laura Trump, the daughter-in-law and co-chair of the Republican National Committee, said that she was potentially thinking about running in this election. Obviously, eventually came out, said she was not going to run in this election. Michael Whately launched his bid, and President Donald Trump announced that he would support him. Laura Trump announced that he would support him. And 2 big names. Tim Scott, who right now is the leader of the Republican National Senatorial Committee, who is basically the fundraising wing of the Senate committee in the Senate. And then John Thune, who is the current Senate Majority Leader who is the current Senate Majority Leader right now. Now, North Carolina is a very, very purple state. It's a very weird state. It hasn't elected a Democrat senator since 2008 when Kay Hagan won in 2008. Obviously, Tom Tillis defeated her in 2014, and they haven't elected a Democrat to the Senate since 2008. On the presidential level, they have voted for President Trump in the last 3 elections. Now, they did vote in 2012 for Mitt Romney by 2 points, but in 2008, they voted by 1/3 of a percentage point for Barack Obama. Remember, that's the same year that Kay Hagan won that Senate election. Now, it's a little different on the gubernatorial side. Democrats won in 2024 by roughly 15 points. Now, yes, it was a historically bad Republican candidate in Mark Robinson. Obviously, a lot of scandals that plagued his campaign. He refused to drop out. It was just kind of a shit show, to put it mildly. Go back to 2020. Roy Cooper. Now, this is why a lot of Democrats think that Roy Cooper could put up a big numbers against the Republican Party in 26. Remember, Roy Cooper, he was a longtime attorney general from the state of North Carolina, initially elected back in 2000, and he served for 4 consecutive terms as attorney general in the state of North Carolina. Now, fast forward to 2016. Roy Cooper runs. He unseats a sit-in Republican governor. The first time in North Carolina's history that a sit-in Republican governor was unseated in their re-election bid. He wins by a very, very narrow margin, roughly less than a fourth, almost a fifth of a percentage point. He wins by. Fast forward to 2020, he wins re-election at the same time when President Trump wins the state by roughly 4.5 percentage points. Tom Tillis wins, Donald Trump wins, but also Roy Cooper wins at the same time. So it clearly, this is a purple state. This is a state that used to be a Republican stronghold. Look, Bush won it by respectively double digits both times. Fast forward to 2008, it's a little different story, obviously. And now it's much more of a purple state right now. And Republicans, like we said, are rallying behind the base candidate right now, who is Michael Whately. And really, I think that Schumer got exactly what he wanted out of this. Schumer got the best possible candidate that you possibly could have. Look, at the end of the day, this is still going to be a close election. It is still a toss-up by most people's ratings. Race to the White House has this as a lean Democrat seat, which would indicate a flip. I currently have this as a lean Democrat seat as well. I believe that Democrats have the ever so slightest edge going into this election. But look at this. Look at the most recent polling. Now, this was from a Republican pollster right here. An internal Republican pollster shows that Michael Whately was down 8 percentage points. Look, an Emerson College poll shows that he was down only 6 points. I would trust Emerson College much more than I would trust really anyone else out of the polls that we have right here for what is the true make of what things look like right now. But obviously, we are still 15 months out. But the Republicans have a lot to do. It is going to be a 15-month general election battle. There is not a primary really on either side at this point. It is going to be Republican Michael Whately, Democrat Roy Cooper. That's that. Obviously, Chuck Schumer, he got what he wanted here. That's their big thing. Now, recently, the more recent one, Sherrod Brown, former senator from the state of Ohio. This is number 2, body number 2 that Schumer was able to recruit. Former Senator Sherrod Brown, who was defeated in the 2024 elections by now Senator Bernie Moreno by roughly 3.5 percentage points, is being courted heavily for a comeback bid against Jon Husted. And just yesterday, he announced that he would run in this election to defeat incumbent Senator Jon Husted in this special election. Now, Brown has a very populist record, which I think could resonate with some voters in Ohio, but the reality is Donald Trump won this state by 11 points in 2024. Ohio, for the longest time, was a bellwether state. 1960 was the last time it voted for a candidate who did not win the general election. It voted for the winner of every election up until the year 2020, when after Donald Trump really solidified his control over the Republican Party. He won in 2016. Obviously, he lost in 2020, but he still won the state of Ohio. He still won in Iowa. Yes, was it close? In Florida, it was close in North Carolina, and he lost many more swing states. But still, fast forward to 2024, Trump has double digits in Ohio, has double digits in Iowa. Look at this and wins all of the swing states. He wins all the swing states at the end of the day. And I think that representing a party, the Democrat Party, that used to be the party that represented the working class, back when Sherrod Brown was initially elected to the Senate back in 2006, when he unseated incumbent Senator Mike DeWine, back when the Democrat Party really represented the middle class, the working class. I think his policies could resonate with that section or that sect of the electorate. I really think he could. But in the current Democrat Party, he is much more of a Washington, D.C. insider than he is a populist Democrat standing up for the working class. He simply is not. If Sherrod Brown wanted to stand up for the working class, where was he? Where was he when Biden allowed 20 million illegal, undocumented immigrants to flow across our southern border? Where was Sherrod Brown? What good did that do to the country? And crime and drugs poured across the border along with it. What good did that do? What good did that do? Where was Sherrod Brown when that happened? He's voted in line with Biden while he was president like 95, 96% of the time. 95 or 96% of the time, pushing policies like the Green New Deal, Medicare expansion for undocumented immigrants, tax increases for the middle class, reparation payments. Like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Where is this guy currently in lock? It makes sense why he lost. Where is he in lockstep with the base, with working class voters in the state of Ohio? Where is he? This guy is much more aligned and prioritizes coastal liberal agendas over the interests of the voters in Ohio. That's why they elected J.D. Vance in 22. That's why they elected Bernie Moreno in 2024. And they voted for President Trump by what? Over 10 points? Over 10 points in the most recent election. They voted for President Trump, which is insane. A state that used to be really a bellwether state voted for Obama. Twice it voted for Obama. It voted for Bush by 2 points, 3 points. It voted for Clinton by 6 points. Voted for Clinton by 1.5 points. Voted for Bush by 10 points. The last time it was a double-digit victory you have to go all the way back to 1988 with George Bush. So I think there's a lot of liabilities that Sherrod Brown has in this race. But at the end of the day, I do still agree that the fact that he is probably the Democrat who has the best shot at winning statewide. No other Democrat had any shot at winning this election. I still have this as a likely Republican seat. We have not made a change to the ratings as of now. There was no other candidate who would make it anywhere near as close as it would be with Sherrod Brown. Regardless of how you feel about him, or if you think that he can connect with the working class voter or not, he is the best opportunity that the Republicans have, or the Democrats have at the end of the day, to win this seat. He's the best that they have. That simply is it. And you can see polling from YouGov and Bowling Green State University shows John Husted up on Sherrod Brown in the first poll from April. Up in this poll, obviously it's a little dated, but by 3 points. In a margin of error by 4 points. So really within the margin of error still. That simply is the reality. But you add on, where else has Schumer really been able to get some big victories for the Democrat Party? Obviously, go to the state of Maine. All eyes are on Janet Mills. All eyes. Now, she recently said at this moment, I don't plan to run for another office. But things change week to week and month to month. She is the 60 or 77-year-old current governor of the state of Maine. She is probably the most popular Democrat in the state right now who could run on the on the senatorial side and defeat longtime Senator Susan Collins. Go back to 1966 when Susan Collins won in the state of Maine. She's gone on every 6 years to win in the state of Maine. 2008, she wins by massive margins. 2014, she wins by almost 40 points. 2020, she wins by 8 percentage points against Sarah Gideon at the time in an election that she was predicted to lose. And she still won by 8.5 percentage points. Between Maine and then look at the state of Alaska with Mary Peltola. These are his next two big targets as of right now. Obviously, to challenge Susan Collins in Maine and to challenge Dan Sullivan in Alaska. But we know Alaska leans red. We know Maine leans blue, but with Susan Collins at the helm, Democrats have not been able to unseat her. It has been 3 decades and they've not been able to unseat her. Now, in Alaska, in 2024, look, Mary Peltola, she lost her House seat. She lost her House seat. And she's very reluctant to leave Alaska, which I think makes Schumer's pitch a much more tougher sell, which is why she is considering running for governor in the state of Alaska instead of running for Senate, where you actually have to travel to D.C. very, very often. And despite all of this, Chuck Schumer is still pushing forward, doing everything he can to help Democrats win in 2026, whether it's in Alaska, whether it's in Maine. But there is one big caveat, one big curveball that Republicans may not see coming. Because even at the end of the day, let's say Democrats are able to win in North Carolina, they hold Georgia, they're able to hold Michigan, they're able to flip. Let's just say they're able to flip in the state of Maine. And then maybe they're able to flip, let's just call it unlikely to win Alaska, I think it's unlikely Democrats will win in Ohio either, but let's say they win in Ohio somehow. It's still 50-50. This is the big curveball that could just shellac Republicans at the end of the day. And that is the extremely moderate senator from the state of Alaska, Lisa Murkowski. Recently, she has talked about that she has thoughts about switching to caucus with the Democrat Party. This is from the Hill that moderate Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski said she's considering the possibility of switching to the Senate Democrat caucus when asked about it. But she doesn't see Democrats as being much better than Republicans and has some major policy disagreements with her colleagues on the other side of the aisle. Yes, we know. At the end, look, she probably votes with the Republican Party 70% of the time, 75% of the time. And there's some big differences on that 25%. Look, she's a pivotal vote, but this is something that could really, really throw a curveball at the Republican Party. Because not only is it over who controls or what bills will be able to pass, because Murkowski will still vote against a lot of Democrat initiatives at the end of the day. But if Democrats are able to elect a Senate majority leader, they are able to control all of the different committees that go on inside the Senate. That is a big issue for the Republican Party. That is a big curveball that could get thrown at them. And you know, could it happen? Could it not? Maybe. I don't know exactly what's going to happen here, but obviously Murkowski is thinking about it, and that is the edge. That it's not even this seat that could be up for grabs. It is a completely other seat, which we're just going to call this a blue seat for right now, not Dan Sullivan's seat. We're talking about Lisa Murkowski's seat. Wow. That puts Democrats at a 51-seat majority. Now, obviously, yes. Is it a long shot? Absolutely, it's a long shot. Is it likely that Murkowski is going to switch parties? No, I don't think so. But at the end of the day, Democrats are desperate. When they're looking at the odds, Polymarket gives them really a 71% chance of winning, or a 29% chance of winning the Senate. We know it's a structural battle for the Democrat Party. We know Republicans are probably going to win in Ohio. Who knows what will happen everywhere else, but I think that if Susan Collins runs, they will hold on to the state of Maine. But even with Alaska going, that could give Democrats an upper hand. Now, obviously, she'd vote against a lot of their initiatives, but if that could give them if they had to go to some, power sharing agreement in the Senate, obviously J.D. Vance breaks the tie-breaking vote, but there could be implications down the road in 2028, in 2030 for who controls the Senate. But folks, this is a scenario. It could happen. But this is the breakdown for the Democrats' 2026 Senate strategy. So let me know, do you think Schumer's recruitment push will flip the Senate, or Republicans hold the line at the end of the day? Drop your thoughts down below in the comments. Hit that like button if you found our breakdown today very helpful to you. And hit that subscribe button for more political analysis as we get closer to the 2026 Senate and House elections. Well, folks, that is going to wrap things up for today. As always, drop down below. You know what to do at this point. And folks, we will catch you next time.